In this episode of Sensational, I'm joined by Lisa Rudge, Director of Parent Services from the ADHD Foundation Neurodiversity Charity. We discuss what executive functioning challenges are.
So for some people, it might look like work and memory challenges. Time blindness isn't a difficulty telling the time, but it might be a difficulty engaging the passing of time.
How labelling young people shapes their identity.
Just think of those labels that we go through life, either being told by other people or those self-given labels.
And strategies and tips to support children with executive functioning challenges.
So the strategies we would suggest perhaps would be ones that support everybody. So we'd have visuals that everybody can follow.
So let's get started. So Lisa, what is executive functioning?
Okay, so executive functioning is, I suppose, your brain's boss, your brain's manager that organises your thoughts and your plans and everything. Sits here within our frontal lobe, and it's like the CEO, the manager of our brains.
Well, when I was thinking about my practice, I was having a little bit of a reflect about being an OT, and I've been assessing it for ages, but not really bringing it together as executive function. Things like memory and managing time and organisation and things like that. That's what we're grouping together as executive function.
Yeah. So all of those things, your memory, your time, your tasks, your organisation skills, what you do with your emotions comes from your executive functioning as well. So it encompasses an awful lot of stuff. But it's I suppose how we manage our thoughts and our days.
Yeah, brilliant. And what are some of the most common challenges when it comes to having executive functioning differences? What does that look like?
Okay, so for some people, it might look like work and memory challenges. So our work and memory is the part of our memory that we keep in mind whilst we're using it. So, for example, if I said, okay, you're going to go and make a cup of tea for everybody. I want coffee, 1 sugar, no milk. And I know you have tea with almond milk. And that person over there wants a water. Have you ever got to the kitchen and thought, what did everyone want?
Most times, yeah. Pretty much every time.
That's our work and memory. It's the part of our memory that we need to keep in mind whilst we're using it. But as well as that, we might see people who lose things or misplace things often, seem disorganised in, their belongings or their thoughts or, their train of thought when we're talking. We might forget, where was I going with that conversation? We often see time blindness as part of executive functioning.
What's time blindness look like, sorry?
So time blindness isn't a difficulty telling the time, but it might be a difficulty engaging the passing of time. So like 5 minutes might seem like a whole hour, or you might think, I've got loads of time to complete this task. And by the time you look, you go, oh my goodness, it's due in 5 minutes. Yeah. So those, who experience executive functioning challenges often live in the now or not now. And the not now might be 5 minutes time, might be an hour's time, might be tomorrow. But that's just not in there, perhaps on the horizon during that time. So, time blindness can cause lots of problems. So, even task initiation with time blindness, it might be, actually, I've got a dentist appointment at 2:00 this afternoon. I might be able to do anything at all with me morning because, what if I'm late for the dentist? So it gives us almost that paralysis of action when we experience time blindness.
It sounds like, I've experienced it myself in my own family. It affects all parts of life, all aspects of life.
It really, really does.
And also I kind of reflecting while you're talking, thinking how children and adults with executive functioning differences can, I suppose, bring that on as part of their personality then, blaming themselves maybe, thinking, I'm lazy or I'm disorganised or, any of those labels that we can attribute to ourselves.
Yeah.
And actually it's just about brain processes again, executive functioning differences and difficulties.
It is, but, just think of those labels that we go through life, either being told by other people or those self-given labels. I'm no good at that. I'm lazy, I'm always late. I can never be on time.
People are going to be disappointed. That kind of,
So think of what that does to your self-esteem, your self-confidence. So we embed this, don't we? We embed this within our personality. Oh, I can't. I'm less than, I can't achieve. I can't do this. So that's how we start to feel within ourselves. But other people may well be labelling us, without thinking about executive challenges, but maybe labelling us those things like lazy or disinterested or just disorganised or just really emotionally volatile.
Doesn't care. Yeah.
Doesn't care.
I suppose then thinking about all these difficulties in a framework of executive functioning is super helpful for moving forwards and for taking away some of that stigma. Yeah, really important. So, Lisa, as a parent with ADHD, what strategies can I put in place to help support my neurodivergent child whilst also managing my own challenges?
So the strategies we would suggest perhaps would be ones that support everybody. So we'd have maybe visuals that everybody can follow. That might be timetables or schedules or things like that. Routine is really, really important. So if the whole family has a routine, we're supporting everybody. Thinking of quite often the sticking points, the tricky points during the day are things like getting our kids out to school and things like that. So if we all have a routine and follow that routine, we know what to expect from each other. So that supports our executive functioning and our child's executive functioning. Don't be hard on yourself.
No, that is true. Yeah.
As a parent, we're often hard on ourselves anyway. But if we have our own executive functioning challenges or ADHD, we often are extra hard. But then what happens when we start with that self-blame? I'm this, like we were saying before. Well, then that will impact our child and slow, for example, that morning routine down. So, if we can have those routines. Another thing about routines, though, routines lessen anxiety.
All right, okay.
If we know what we're doing, it's predictable, it lessens anxiety. So family relationships will be better, in those sticking points as well. The routine takes away decision frustration. So those with ADHD or executive function and challenges in any other way, often, making a decision can be really, really difficult, adding pressure in the moment. So if we have a routine, it takes away that decision frustration as well.
Yeah, I can see that, actually. Yeah, I can see that. So I suppose when you're saying about not being hard on yourself, thinking about your own difficulties and differences in this framework of executive functioning needs, I think sometimes it's really easy, isn't it, to have that empathy and sympathy for our children and for other people, but it's really hard for yourself. But stopping and acknowledging that and then building in some of these strategies might be what makes the difference.
Absolutely. So if we can externalise anything that we're having challenges with, so, okay, how else can we take it out of our brain and put it somewhere else? So timers, schedules, visuals, all of these types of things, sort of outsource those executive functionings we were talking about before. And if we can outsource as many as possible, we're not having to carry all of that around with us. So, doing that for us will help our children with their executive functioning. Another thing that comes to mind as well when we're talking about parents who have their own perhaps challenges or their own executive functioning difficulties, if we can, I suppose, if we can model how we deal with them, so frustration and upset, they're all normal everyday things. How many of us hide that away from our children? Hide, I can't tell them I'm upset. I can't tell them I'm this. How do our children learn those skills?
That's true.
So by managing our own emotions, our own challenges, and talking them through with our children, they understand where we're at. We're helping them to develop their own strategies, and those strategies will be embedded in our family life.
Yeah. And I suppose what you were saying earlier about bringing everybody together in the family as a team to work around these differences, you're also teaching those strategies that they can take forward into their future lives, and hopefully that will be what supports them going forward as well.
They're all transferable strategies to every element, whether it's home, school, friendships, workplace.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I hope you found that really helpful. So in our next question, we're thinking about something we touched on a little bit earlier. We're thinking, how do labels and stereotypes, whether positive or negative, shape the identities of our young people?
Okay. Obviously, because I'm very old, thinking back in school, there was always labels of lazy, naughty, disruptive,
Class clown, maybe. Yeah.
class clown, emotional, they're away with the fairies, world of their own, different planet. All of those things were all being said about children, in my class and, growing up. If you think about the challenges that perhaps would display those characteristics, they're all executive functioning challenges. Yeah. If you hear, you're no good at that, you're lazy, why can't you be like everybody else?
You're so-and-so age, you should be able to do this by now.
Absolutely. So what does that do to you? It's thought that by the age of 12, there's 20,000 more negative comments given to a child with ADHD than their peers.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Imagine what that does to you. So if you're told, come on, you're lazy, or you can do this, you've had loads of time, I can almost, in my head, I can almost see that person shrinking down.
Yeah. Feel it in yourself. Yeah.
And that embeds then. So that becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy. I can't do that. I'm not even going to try because I can't do that. So we see people in those cycles of negative self-belief, which then impacts their friendships, their academic performance, their employment possibilities. It goes on and on and on. So those labels, and this is when parents often say to me, oh, I don't want to give them a label of ADHD or autism, I don't want that label. Well, think of what labels they're already living with, which may potentially be more damaging to the self-esteem and their self-confidence.
Yeah. So if we turn that around, thinking about if we're able to use some of the strategies that we talked about earlier and frame this in a positive way, how does that impact our young people and children?
Oh, absolutely, because they know it's not a character flaw. They're not being purposefully disorganized or forgetful. They know, actually, this is because my brain works in a different way.
Yeah.
And what I can do to strengthen that is X, Y, and Z. So these strategies in our toolbox are ones that we can use, and like I said, transferable into all other areas of our lives. And that reframes it to say, actually, no, it's not my fault. I just need a little bit of extra support, or I need to use this strategy in this situation.
Yeah.
Brings that self-confidence back up, that self-worth back up, because it's not about me. It's not that, like I said, often we internalize that we have a character flaw, and that's not the case.
And I think it's about in those tricky moments where something perhaps hasn't gone quite so well, maybe we have been late to something or forgotten something or felt ourselves to be a little bit disorganised, we as parents or carers or teachers can just in that moment step in and say, hang on a minute, this has just happened because your brain works in a different way. And next time we can try this, don't worry.
Yeah.
Or let's have a little bit of a think about together as a team, what we can do next time to make this a little bit better or perhaps not happen. And just offering that support, but that acknowledgement that we also know, but we also know this is just because your brain works in a different way and we're all in it together, we're a team.
Absolutely.
So helpful.
There's an analogy that I really like about ADHD brains being Ferrari brains with bicycle brakes. And it's about strengthening those brakes. And I really like that analogy because those brains are fabulous. We can do all sorts. We just need to make sure that our brakes and the rest of our car is in tune with that.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant.
I really
Thank
like
you.
it.
So what are some of the different strategies that people with executive functioning differences, our children who've got these executive dysfunction and difference in needs, what kind of strategies can we build in to offer that support? You touched on it a little bit earlier, but is there anything else that you would like to share?
Externalising. How can we outsource whichever element we have challenge with? How can we outsource that? So like I said before, that might be with timers or alarms. It might be with timetables and strategies. It might be with visuals. It might be with body doubling. Body doubling is amazing. Have you ever heard of body doubling?
I have, but explain it again. Just so I know I've got it right.
Body doubling can be anything at all. It makes us feel that we're accountable. So if we're doing a task, we might want somebody else to sit alongside us whilst we do the task. They're not necessarily helping us, or they may prompt if needed, but just to have somebody else there while we do the task can often be really, really helpful. I do this myself. In work. I tell people what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this for an hour. So I've externalized that now.
Yeah.
So, our external work and memory, to do with our, I suppose, how we externalize our thoughts, how we externalize by visuals, all of that is probably stronger than our inner narrative. So if we externalize it, we're more likely to be able to keep that in our work and memory, to be able to maintain that. So I will say to people, okay, I'm going to do this task for an hour. Because I've externalized that, I've told them they're now body doubling with me.
Yeah.
So I know that potentially they could say, your hour's up, or is that done? So even that accountability helps me stay on track.
I imagine that's probably super important for time-focused tasks or things like revision, things where things have to be done within a certain time frame, knowing that somebody's around and you've got that shared accountability that, like you say, you've externalised what you need out of that time.
Absolutely.
I imagine that's a time when body doubling might come in really useful.
That's where things like homework clubs and revision clubs come really helpful, because actually they're not helping you with your homework, but they're alongside you doing that task. And that can be really, really helpful.
While you were talking as well, and when you mentioned earlier, I suddenly had a thought about apps or things that can be on your phone or your tablet or your laptop that might help with some of this externalising and helping with, I suppose, organisation, those kind of things, time management that you talked about earlier.
Absolutely. And with the development of technology, there's all sorts at our fingertips, on our wrists and everything. There's lots that we can tap into. So there's lots of different apps that you can use. A quick search on the internet will pull up lots and lots of different things. You can use just basic timers. There's an app that I have on my computer that shows like a sun timer.
All right, okay.
So, for example, if I'm in a time-bound meeting, I can see a visual of how much time I've got left to be able to do that. And that really helps with me to manage, the pace of what I'm doing and to make sure I can get all the information I need out of that meeting.
Brilliant. And one of the things I love on my laptop, which has probably been around for ages, but I only discovered it recently, is sticky notes, where you've got Post-it notes on your screen. But I feel a great sense of satisfaction when I'm able to cross something off, but I can see what I've worked through to kind of almost tell myself, you are being organised, you are managing this time, it's okay. And it's all, again, it's externalised, I can visually see it, but those sticky notes have made such a difference, and it's such a small little
They really, really have. But exactly what you've just said there about that list, to-do lists are great if they're smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound. We could do a to-do list like this, couldn't we? And that would be overwhelming and that would cause stress to somebody with executive functioning challenges. So if we can make sure that our to-do lists are realistic, we're more likely to be able to stick with them. If we can cross them off, that gives us that little bit of motivation to move on to the next thing. In fact, I have been known to add things onto my list that I've already done, so I can tick them off, just so I've got that visual to say, actually, yes, I've achieved that today.
It's that little hit of positivity, I've done it, a little boost, and we're on to the next thing.
And, talking about ADHD, that boost is a little bit of dopamine. And as we know with ADHD, dopamine is the chemical that we need to send around all those messages in our brain to be able to focus and concentrate and use all of those executive functionings.
Yeah, brilliant. So we've come in towards the end of the podcast today, but I wonder, is there anything, any myth that you'd like to bust, or anything that you'd like to say about executive functioning that's kind of out there but isn't necessarily true?
First of all, out there is possibly, it's because they're not clever, or because of their intellect or intelligence or whatever you want to term it. That's absolutely not the case at all. It's nothing to do with IQ, but it is all to do with the way our brains are wired. So if we give our children, our young people, our adults, the space, the grace, and the strategies to use to reach their full potential, they're going to thrive. They're absolutely going to thrive.
And I do see that at home and in my work every single day. It's absolutely true. I can absolutely back that up.
Yeah.
True. It's been fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for joining me on Sensational.